Texas is one of 3 states that are being accused of enacting racially gerrymandered districts. Lawsuits have also been filed against Republican-drawn districts in North Carolina and Ohio. Voting rights activists say racially gerrymandered districts are part of the GOP's plan to stay in power. Our political power panel is here to talk about it. BNC contributor Tezlyn Figaro is joined by Democratic strategist Kristal Knight. The DOJ's lawsuit, ladies, is the latest in a battle between the state and the Biden administration. And here's Associate Attorney General Vanita Gupta. Listen.
The complaint asks the court to prohibit Texas from conducting elections under the challenge plans and asks the court to order Texas to devise and implement new redistricting plans that comply with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act.
So here we are. Voting rights activists have been critical of the Biden administration for not pushing hard enough for a new voting rights law, talking about that filibuster. Tezlyn, does the administration deserve credit for filing this suit against Texas?
Absolutely. This is pretty much the norm in redistricting. I remember in 2010 in Florida, I was on the Florida League of Women Voters, and this was also an ugly fight then. So we can expect to see lawsuits filed when this happens, and gerrymandering intentionally leaves out minority communities. What I find interesting is that Texas, the Hispanic population, a lot of those folks vote conservative as well as Democrats. So by playing this game in the state of Texas, Republicans could absolutely be marginalizing their voters. So this is really important. And I just want to say this because there's a lot of misconception on what voting rights is, Kelly, and there's talk on the internet that says, I don't understand what the issue is. Black people have the right to vote. And I explain redistricting like this. Voting Rights Act is also about accessibility. If I tell you you have the right to go to the store to buy food, but once you get the store is closed, you now do not have access. So it is not about having the right to vote, but the access to vote, and redistricting absolutely minimizes access for our community.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because accessibility is what it's really all about. And if you keep nullifying the access that black and browns have to get to those polls, you've essentially suppressed their vote. Now, experts say even if the lawsuit prevails, it's unlikely to change Texas maps before the midterm elections. So, Kristal, what are Democratic Party leaders doing to fight this gerrymandering?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, they're obviously bringing litigation, which is the first step in the process, challenging these laws, but they're also really trying to talk to their base and understand where these new district lines will be drawn and how they can maximize the vote in their state. Remember, back in the summer when the legislature was leaving, we saw Democrats leaving the state, fleeing the state, because this is what Republicans were planning to do all along. They were cutting deals in the back door. They were making sure that if folks voted their way, and even some Hispanic members of the Texas state legislature voted to, pass these restrictive voting rights laws in the hopes that they would be drawn a new congressional district, a new, district that would help them win their votes. And we saw this attempt earlier this summer as well with with 2 of the black U.S. Congresspeople whose district was attempting to be split up, again, because of backdoor deals that the Texas state Republican-led legislature was cutting. And so it's really incumbent upon Democrats right now to really fight this law. But until then, until it actually, goes through its actual litigation process, continue to inform their voters, let folks know this is happening, let them know what the changes will be so that they can be prepared come the 2022 midterm elections.
Kristal, thank you for that. Tezlyn, from an independent point of view, you are independent, so you see both sides at fault here nationally. But when it comes down to Texas, the GOP, as Kristal was just pointing out, doing these backroom deals, hiding behind or concealed in darkness rather than bringing into the light to be transparent. The GOP seems to be using different methods to tip future elections in their favor. In addition to redistricting, they have enacted restricted voting laws, and they've also worked to put Trump supporters in key roles that will control the actual counting of the ballots. So what can Democrats do to fight the three-prong attack on democracy? And furthermore, what can independents who are on the sidelines looking and observing from the outside looking in, what can they do to challenge both parties to get it right?
Great question, Kelly. All of the things that you mentioned, they can do on the three-prong attack, but there's another thing, another prong that Democrats can do, which is continue to pass a Black agenda, to talk about the things that Black folks are talking about. On last week, I had an opportunity to moderate a forum for Maryland Democratic governors who wish to be the governor of Maryland. And we talked about the issues that Black people are concerned about. And this is so important because a lot of when we have this conversation about Black and brown voters, I keep pointing this out, that Black and brown voters do not always vote the same, particularly in conservative states like Texas and Florida. Look at Florida, for example. Half of the Hispanic population votes conservative. The other half, they vote liberal. So when we say, how is this affecting Black folks? When we look at Texas, how is this affecting brown voters? We have to be clear that this type of legislation that's being passed in this redistricting area is specifically hurting Black voters. Because again, in Texas, there are voters who are a part of the Hispanic population that will vote conservative. So ultimately, Kelly, this hurts us. And so if Democrat leaders don't want to have that conversation, if they do not want to be bold enough to say, what is it that is on Black people's mind that will engage the voters and bring them out, opposed to voter depression to make them sit at home, they're going to have a problem in 2022. And I want to say this, there are some Democrat states that have gained some seats, Illinois, Nevada, Oregon. There's about 10 states that will be on the ballot on next year in 2022 that are flippable. And Democrats have to do a better job of messaging that to see where they can win.
Kristal, before we go to a break, Democrats seem to shy away from being strong when messaging, whereas Republicans, they don't care. They're going to induce fear factor and everything else. They really come at you and throw everything at you, including the kitchen sink. What do Democrats have to do to get their messaging on point to show themselves to be viable in Texas and to actually move the needle so that they can get what they're seeking, and that's to have all people, Black people in particular, to be able to vote?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kelly. One of the things that Republicans do very well, they repeat the same thing over and over and over again. And so you hear a great echo chamber coming from that side of the aisle. One of the things that I think the Democratic Party needs to do is be consistent in messaging. If I were, over the Democratic Party, state party in Texas, I would have already been, plastering communities, leaders, advocacy groups about this redistricting plans that were coming up. I would already be messaging my base, my voters, and letting them know that they have to go to the meetings. They have to speak out. They have to call their state representatives. They also have to call on their members of Congress to make sure that they really push through the Voting Rights Act that has been just kind of lollygagging through Congress all summer and even right now into the fall. We still don't have federal legislation that is codified to protect Black and brown folks' right to vote. And that's why we see these laws like in Texas and in Florida, even in my home state in Tennessee, that are trying to pop up because the federal leaders aren't doing what they could do to push the president, to push the filibuster, to push the Senate. And then on the state level, our state party leaders are not, having a consistent message to their base, letting them know what's going on and keeping them engaged.